This photo was taken seconds before the disaster, and this happened.
Welcome to Eternal Moments. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Start.
This image shows the immediate aftermath of the 1955 Le Mans disaster, the deadliest accident in motorsport history, when a car disintegrated upon impact and its debris flew uncontrollably into the stands. In a matter of seconds, what had been a race transformed into absolute chaos due to the lack of safety barriers. The toll was devastating. 83 spectators lost their lives and dozens were injured. This tragedy marked a turning point and forced a rethinking of safety at motorsport events worldwide. This image depicts the Ghetto train disaster, which occurred on October 1, 1918, considered the worst train accident in Swedish history. A train derailed at high speed, causing fires and immediate destruction among the carriages. The toll was tragic. 42 people died and another 41 were seriously injured. The event shocked the country and exposed the dangers of the railway infrastructure of the time. This devastating image reveals the chaos caused by the Galveston hurricane on September 8, 1900, considered the deadliest natural disaster in U.S. history. The city was virtually leveled by extreme winds and a massive storm surge. Thousands of people lost their lives in a matter of hours, with no warning systems in place to alert them to the danger. The tragedy forever changed how the country would face natural disasters. This image captures the disaster that occurred during the 1955 24 Hours of Le Mans, one of the darkest tragedies in motorsport. A violent crash caused a car to explode, sending debris flying into the unprotected crowd. The result was devastating. 83 people were killed and more than 120 were injured in a matter of seconds. The impact was so great that it forever changed safety regulations in endurance racing. This image depicts the 1955 Le Mans disaster, the worst accident in motorsport history. During the race, Pierre Levegue's car was launched into the air after an impact and disintegrated in front of the grandstands. Metal fragments flew into the crowd, creating a scene of absolute horror. The toll was devastating. 83 spectators dead, in addition to Levegue himself, in seconds that changed the sport forever. This image shows the bow section of the supertanker Cadiz after it broke in two off the French coast in March 1978. The accident released more than 220,000 tons of oil into the ocean in a matter of hours. Beaches, marine life, and entire communities were coated in crude oil. It was considered the worst environmental disaster of the 1970s and a turning point in global environmental awareness. This image is from the Halifax explosion of December 6, 1917, when a French ship carrying explosives collided with a Norwegian vessel in the harbor. The explosion was so powerful that it leveled much of the city in seconds. Thousands of buildings were destroyed, and a shockwave was felt for miles around. At the time, it was considered the worst man-made disaster in history. This image shows two children silently watching rescue efforts after the Aberfan, Wales coal landslide disaster in 1966. A mountain of mining waste collapsed onto the village, burying homes and a school. The scene reflects the mixture of disbelief and grief that engulfed the entire community. It was a tragedy that forever marked the collective memory of the United Kingdom. This image shows the aftermath of the Superga air disaster on May 4, 1949. The plane crashed into Superga Hill in bad weather. All 31 people on board died, including all the players of the legendary Torino FC, with no survivors. The tragedy shocked the football world and brought an end to one of the club's most glorious eras. This image shows the aftermath of the 1955 Le Mans disaster, considered the worst accident in motorsport history. During the race, after an impact, a car disintegrated, its wreckage hurled into the stands. In a matter of seconds, 83 spectators were killed and more than 120 were injured. The event left an indelible mark and forever changed racing safety regulations. This image is the first known photograph of the Chernobyl nuclear disaster, captured minutes after the explosion of Reactor 4 on April 26, 1986. At first glance, the scene appears calm, but it conceals a massive release of invisible radiation. The world was not yet aware that it was witnessing the worst nuclear accident in history. Its consequences would extend for decades and affect millions of people.
This image shows the Chernobyl nuclear power plant in 1983, years before it became the site of the worst nuclear disaster in history. Everything appears normal and operational, with no signs of the lurking danger. No one imagined that this place would forever change nuclear energy and industrial safety. What followed would mark entire generations. This image shows a man walking among dead cattle after the gas eruption at Lake Nyos in Cameroon in 1986. The blue, seemingly harmless lake released a lethal cloud of carbon dioxide overnight. More than 1,700 people and all the animals nearby died without warning. It was one of the strangest and most silent natural disasters ever recorded. This image is from the Aberfan disaster in South Wales in 1966. A massive avalanche of coal waste slid down a hillside, burying houses and a school during school hours. 116 children and 28 adults died, leaving an indelible wound in the community. The tragedy became a symbol of industrial negligence and collective grief. This image shows the Honda Point disaster, which occurred on September 8, 1923, off the coast of California. A fleet of U.S. Navy destroyers ran aground simultaneously due to navigational errors and poor conditions. 7 ships were destroyed in a matter of minutes. The accident became one of the greatest peacetime naval disasters ever recorded. This image shows the Hindenburg disaster in 1937, photographed by Sam Scher at the moment the airship bursts into flames. In seconds, the structure became a fireball before hundreds of witnesses. The accident caused dozens of deaths and an immediate global impact. It was the precise moment when confidence in large airships was lost. This image shows some surviving officers and crew members of the Hindenburg gathered at Lakehurst Air Base 3 days after the 1937 disaster. Many are wearing Marine Corps uniforms because all their belongings were lost in the fire. Some managed to survive only after removing their burning clothes. The scene reflects the human and psychological impact of one of the most remembered air tragedies of the 20th century. This image shows English Boy Scouts raising money in 1912 to help the victims of the Titanic disaster. After the sinking, the tragedy shook the entire world and sparked a wave of international solidarity. Young volunteers took to the streets to support the affected families. The scene reflects how even the youngest among us responded to a historic catastrophe. This image shows the devastating aftermath of the Texas City disaster on April 16, 1947, one of the largest non-nuclear explosions in history. A shipment of 2,300 tons of ammonium nitrate caught fire and exploded in the harbor. The blast wave caused the explosion of the SS High Flyer, a ship carrying sulfur, further exacerbating the catastrophe. Between 400 and 1,700 people and all the animals nearby died without warning. It was one of the strangest and most silent natural disasters ever recorded. This image of the aftermath of the explosion at Pier 1, Port Chicago on July 17, 1944, 2 ships loaded with ammunition for the Pacific Front suddenly exploded during loading operations. 320 men died instantly in the worst tragedy to occur on U.S. soil during World War II. The disaster exposed serious safety flaws and left a deep mark in U.S. military history. This image refers to Italy's worst rail disaster, which occurred on the night of March 2, 1944. A train running on low-quality coal became stuck inside a tunnel as smoke accumulated without escape. In the darkness, 517 people died from carbon monoxide poisoning, many of them stowaways. The tragedy remained for years as a silent wound of the war. This image shows rescuers emerging to the surface during the Easington mine disaster in County Durham on May 29, 1951. An underground explosion trapped dozens of miners deep underground. Rescue teams battled time, fire, and gas to save lives. The accident became one of the most tragic episodes in British mining history.
This image depicts the Aberfan disaster, which occurred on October 21, 1966, after several days of torrential rain. Soaked coal debris suddenly gave way and slid down the hillside. The avalanche buried homes and a functioning school. 28 adults and 116 children died, leaving a tragedy impossible to forget. This image shows the aftermath of the Port Chicago disaster, which occurred on July 17, 1944. Two cargo ships filled with explosives and fuel suddenly detonated at the dock. The explosion was so violent that 320 people died instantly. It became the worst disaster on American soil during World War II. This image captures the poignant moment when a survivor of the Spring Hill mining disaster is rescued after 5 days trapped underground in October 1958. Against all odds, he managed to survive the darkness and confinement. His reunion with his family symbolizes hope amidst tragedy. The disaster left dozens dead and deeply scarred the Nova Scotia community. This image shows Richard Hornbuckle's car stopped just inches from the void after the collapse of the old Sunshine Skyway Bridge in Florida on May 9, 1980. A cargo ship called the Summit Venture crashed into the bridge during a storm. Several vehicles plunged into the water within seconds. Hornbuckle survived by sheer luck, making the scene a symbol of chance and tragedy. This image shows students praying among the rubble of Pantglass School after the Aberfan disaster in 1966. A coal tailing slide buried the building during school hours. 144 people died, including 116 children, in one of the UK's most devastating tragedies. The scene reflects silence, grief, and faith amidst an incomprehensible loss. This image shows the Hindenburg disaster of May 6, 1937, recreated in color. The giant airship burst into flames in seconds during its landing attempt. Flames engulfed the structure before the astonished eyes of onlookers. The accident marked the definitive end of the era of the great airships. This image shows the coffins of the victims of the Hindenburg disaster draped with Nazi flags in New York on May 11, 1937. The scene reflects Germany's official mourning for the deceased crew. The contrast between the solemnity of the funeral and the recent air tragedy is striking. It was one of the most tense and symbolic moments following the airship disaster. This image shows Liverpool fans during the FA Cup semi-final on April 15, 1989, moments before the Hillsborough tragedy. What should have been a sporting celebration turned into chaos due to crowd mismanagement. 96 fans lost their lives, crushed in the stands. The disaster forever changed safety in football stadiums. This image shows Liverpool fans during the FA Cup semi-final on April 15, 1989, moments before the Hillsborough tragedy. This image shows the aftermath of the Block 5 explosion that occurred on March 14, 1970 in Greenland. A gas leak caused the detonation of an apartment building in a residential area. The explosion killed 11 people and left many families homeless. It was one of the worst man-made disasters in the country's history. This image shows the successful landing of the Hindenburg in Lakehurst, New Jersey in May 1936, a year before the disaster. The airship was seen as a technological marvel and a symbol of the future of air travel. Nothing foreshadowed the danger hidden in its design. Months later, that confidence would turn into tragedy. This image shows English Boy Scouts raising funds in 1912 to help those affected by the Titanic disaster. After the sinking, the tragedy shocked the entire world. Solidarity arose even among the youngest, who took to the streets to help. The scene reflects how a global catastrophe awakened empathy and collective aid. This image shows the Cavallese cable car disaster in Italy on March 9, 1976. A malfunction caused a cabin to plummet from a great height on a mountain. The impact was devastating, and 43 people lost their lives. The tragedy shook the country and highlighted serious safety problems in the system. This image shows witnesses observing the devastation after the Quinton-Schill rail disaster on May 22, 1915. 5 trains collided in a chain of fatal errors. More than 200 people died, many of them soldiers of the Royal Scots Battalion on their way to war. It was one of the worst rail accidents in British history.
This image shows the 3 men whom the Soviet government held responsible for the Chernobyl disaster during their 1987 trial. They were held accountable for human error and management failures following the explosion of Reactor 4. The trial sought to provide a political response to an unprecedented tragedy. For many, the trial symbolized both guilt and an attempt to close one of the darkest chapters of the 20th century. This image shows survivors of the Otranto disaster bidding farewell to the island of Islay in 1918. The military transport sank after colliding in a storm during World War I. Hundreds of soldiers lost their lives in the icy waters. The scene reflects the silence and mourning following a nearly forgotten tragedy of the war. This image shows a woman receiving an autograph from a survivor of the Titanic disaster in April 1912. Just days after the sinking, the survivors became living witnesses to the tragedy. The scene reflects the global impact of the event and the public fascination with those who escaped with their lives. It is an intimate moment that connects human curiosity with the historic catastrophe. This image shows the wreckage of the Turkish Airlines DC-10 that crashed in the Ermenonville forest near Paris on March 3, 1974. The plane was traveling at such a high speed that it completely disintegrated upon impact. All 346 people on board died in the worst air disaster recorded up to that time. The tragedy revealed critical design flaws and changed safety in commercial aviation. This image shows Emmett Kelly, the original sad clown, running to help during the Hartford Circus fire in 1944. What was meant to be a family entertainment turned into a nightmare when the Big Top burned in minutes. More than 160 people died, many of them children. The scene remains one of the most impactful moments of the worst fires in U.S. history. This image shows the icy waters of the North Atlantic where the Titanic would sink a few days later on April 4, 1912. At first glance, the sea appears calm and harmless. No one imagined that this same place would be the scene of one of the most famous tragedies in history. The preceding calm contrasts sharply with the disaster that was about to unfold. This image shows the site of the Dollerau train disaster in West Germany, which occurred on May 27, 1971. A collision between trains left the area completely devastated. Dozens of people lost their lives, and many more were injured. The accident remains one of the worst in the country's railway history. This image shows Valery Hodemchuk, considered the first victim of the Chernobyl disaster in 1986. As the operator of Reactor 4, he died instantly in the explosion. His image symbolizes the beginning of an unprecedented nuclear tragedy. The photo serves as a reminder of the immediate human cost of the catastrophe and its impact on the history of nuclear power worldwide. This image shows 16-year-old Ned Parfett selling newspapers in London about the Titanic disaster in April 1912. Like many children his age, he was working to help his family and spread shocking news. Ironically, he died 6 years later, on October 29, 1918, from a German bomb during World War I. The photo connects 2 historical tragedies through the life of a single young man. This image shows the cleanup crew on Naked Island in Prince William Sound after the Exxon Valdez grounding on April 2, 1989. The accident spilled millions of liters of oil, devastating beaches and marine ecosystems.
Workers battled the pollution to minimize the environmental impact. It was one of the worst man-made ecological disasters in modern history. This image shows the aftermath of the O'Connor Plating Works disaster on February 20, 1947. An industrial explosion killed 17 people and irreparably destroyed 11 buildings. The incident highlighted the risks of handling chemicals in factories. The tragedy left a deep mark on the local community and on industrial safety standards. This image shows the Tasman Bridge disaster, which occurred in 1975 in Australia. The collapse of the structure surprised drivers and pedestrians, causing immediate death and destruction. The accident highlighted engineering flaws and safety standards of the time. The tragedy remains one of the worst infrastructure incidents in the country's history.